And we're back with another episode of the Hot Lap. Brady, it's been a long time, 8 weeks or so, and there's a lot to go over. Like, a lot.
Absolutely. I know we've had some time off there, Tyler, but yeah, we have a lot to cover. Hopefully, we'll get it all done tonight so we can kind of be up to date whenever we get further in. Because I mean, we're 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away from crowning the champion on season two, of the SimRacerHub.com Truck Series on Monday nights.
Yeah, and it's been a very interesting title chase for the Monday Night Series here as they're in the round of 10 that coming off of Chicagoland Speedway, the first race of the round, coming up to the second race, final race of the round before the championship six take place at Auto Club. But first, I think we got to kick it off, though, with our Friday Night Series here really in the middle of the season right now. Full season swing, kind of getting it towards that cutoff race in the cutoff race for the playoffs in a couple weeks' time, but there's really a lot to go over.
Absolutely. I think Cody said that we were at Milwaukee last time.
Yep,
So
the last
that was
race we covered was Milwaukee.
so that was Phil Pappas, number 85 for BP Racing for Autism, Eric Zimmerman's team.
Yep.
It's good to see them back in victory lane. I know they struggled as a team in past seasons, so it's they've been doing pretty decent. You know, they got some good consistent drivers over there on that team this season. You look at the following week, Iowa Speedway, Jeff Merrick, the number 60, gets the victory lane for the first time in the season. Then we
Yeah.
switch over to Kansas Speedway, mile and a half, and Keith Bradley wins for Mission One Esports, and that would be his second win of the season. Uh,
Yep, and it won't be his last that we're going to cover. I mean, he goes on quite a bit of a tear, I would say. But I think we kind of need to stop and talk about this next race that was on the docket a little bit more. And that was the Daytona Road Course. Mike Sargent gets to victory lane, but that race was not without controversy between two different sets of drivers. First big set coming from two pretty big names in NASRA. That's Blake Lothian and Keith Bradley going at each other.
Absolutely. There was a little bit of fireworks. Usually we don't see that on road courses because everybody, pretty much gets spread out. I would say that the weakest link on the schedules for the groups in both series or road courses. I don't
Yep.
think anybody would deny that. I mean, but sometimes you just got to be honest with one another. But they're also fun for us to go to. That's why we go twice a season. So thinking that it was going to be fun, Cody Knott, our producer, actually picked this race for some reason. He likes Daytona, the Daytona Road Course. Uh, but yeah, Tyler, Blake and Keith had some previous beef. I would say going back to Iowa. Blake gets into Keith. Keith gets into Blake. There's some disagreement. It kind of boils over to Kansas a little bit, but then it really just blew up at Daytona Road Course. Also, another little splat that happened is Chris Blanchard and James Morris get into it.
Yep.
So we see a little bit of back and forth between. Obviously, it was intentional on both parties. I don't think any driver was right or wrong,
Nope.
but it took the admins of Nazareth to get involved because Keith got a 25-point penalty. James Moore's got a 25-point penalty for his action. So some big penalties come out of that race, and it all could have been avoided.
Yeah. It could have. I would say the only like truly innocent party of the four drivers involved. Really, Blanchard, in my opinion, didn't really do anything wrong. Um, the other three drivers did things that were, I guess we could call actions detrimental to Nazra as a whole, with just how they handled themselves on the track. And although it provides for great entertainment, it kind of looks bad at times when we have drivers out here intentionally wrecking. And this won't be the first set of incidents we talk about tonight, Brady. There's some other ones happening later on. Just in this series alone, on the Friday night series, at a future track, the last track we just raced at previously, I will say though, just an impressive run by Mike Sargent. Won't be the last time we talk about him either. Kind of a road course ace, you could say, with his win at Daytona Road Course, and then what he goes on to do later in the Monday Night Series. But we'll get to that eventually. But Keith Bradley gets his third win at Rockingham, leads only the last lap. A race dominated by Kyle Hess, leading 75 laps. Hess kind of, I don't want to say chokes it away, but it
Well,
kind
he
of
was on
in a
different
way.
strategy. He was
Yeah,
on a different strategy.
the strategy hurt him. Yeah.
Timing
Um,
of cautions hurt him.
yeah.
If the race goes green a little bit longer, I think he's in a great position. But
Yep.
yeah, the strategy bug kind of killed Kyle Hess at Rockingham.
Yeah, and Dayton Shepard, shout out to him for having a great run at Rockingham, finishing second there. I mean, he ran really, really well for Dep Racing. Hasn't been a great season for that team so far, struggling in the team standings, but a really solid run at Rockingham to at least kind of get his season on a good footing there at that 1 week. But then you, Bossman, take the win at Talladega in a very entertaining race. I will say, despite some of the dumber incidents we've had at super speedways in the past, the two series put on great super speedway races, generally
I would agree.
speaking. And we can get some really, really long green flag runs. I'd almost say get rid of stage cautions at super speedways and road courses, period, because sometimes those are the only cautions we have till the final 20 laps are those stage cautions. And I think it would allow the races to play out in a really fun and interesting way if we stayed green for as long as we could. But that's maybe a topic for another day for the board to discuss, but potentially getting rid of
Absolutely.
those cautions. But I think it'd be better for the racing.
Yeah, and to your point, I would argue not because I won that race, but it was just a great race to be a part of. I think it was one of the hands down best Talladega races this any group in NASRA has put on. I mean, we three wide for 20 laps straight, and I mean, you just couldn't go anywheres.
Yep.
Track position played a big role, pit strategy, and it was just fun. We had that one caution that came out towards the end, and we saw the swim guys up there: Adam Newton, Blake Lothian, Justin Lumpkin, Stephen Thomas.
Yep.
And I just thought that I was along for the ride until all of a sudden Keith Bradley, Ashley Dodson, and Robbie Richardson, those guys, my teammates, came through the middle and were able to propel me to the front. So I was, lucky. But yeah, Talladega was a great race.
Yep. And then go back to Indianapolis Raceway Park. Jeff Merck gets another win there on another short track. And then, of course, the King of Mile and a Halfs, it feels like, at least in the Friday night series, Keith Bradley gets the win again at Old Kentucky, Legacy, Kentucky. I actually got to race in that race in the Friday night series, and I thought the racing was overall really, really solid. I will say the track is absolutely horrendous, and I hope we never go back there. But wasn't as
Well,
bad
I
as I
wouldn't
thought it
go
was going
that
to be.
far, Tyler. I would say that the setup, when we tested it, everybody said that it worked and it was great.
Yep.
I found that the setup was bottoming out. The splitter was on the racing surface a little bit more than what we wanted it to be.
Especially
So
in 1 and 2. Yeah.
yeah, I would say that if you tweak the setup a little bit, maybe, and maybe
Mhm.
provide a little bit better racing, but I would agree. I mean, if we're gonna race at Kentucky, we might as well just race at the new surface.
Yeah, I think the new surface is actually better for the racing because it's flatter in 3 and 4. And it being flatter in 3 and 4 means more off throttle time. It means the drivers, I think, have more opportunities to make passes personally. Um,
Yeah,
so I would like to see new Kentucky on the schedule instead of old Kentucky if we ever return to a Kentucky track. Um, I don't think it's end all be all though if we do or don't.
right. And
But
I
then
would say this about Kentucky is, me and you running up front, it seemed
Yep.
like if you and I know on a restart I raced you pretty hard, and the reason being is because after 10, 12 laps, you couldn't pass.
Nope,
So
you
you
couldn't.
had to be in front of that person. And I think that's why I raced you so hard, if you notice, is because I wanted to I knew if I stayed ahead of you that I was going to control the race. And
Yeah,
what kind of bit me in the butt there after dominating stage 1 and 2 is I was giving all my information to Robbie and Keith, and they actually beat me at the end.
yeah.
So maybe next time I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, I mean the way the race kind of played out, right? it just kind of organically played out where there was like 5 or 6 of us who could get to the lead, but whoever got to the lead at the end of about 10 to 15 laps stayed the leader until whatever event happened, whether it be caution, green flag stops, end of a stage. And that's my issue with the track. And I think that's very setup dependent, like we talked about. And we'll get more into setups later on. I don't want to harp on this for too long.
Sounds good. And then we move on to that next race to get us caught up, and that's
Oh,
Richmond Raceway.
yeah.
And I found I watched it. I was actually in a session helping race controlling with our race admin TJ Moore that comes on Mondays and Fridays. Uh, Decent race.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, especially for the group to be at Richmond. I want to say we had 25 guys that showed up.
Yep.
We had a little bit of controversy with Hunter
We,
Parsons and Jeff
we had
Merritt,
something. Yeah.
but but I mean Ashley Dotson scores his first victory of the season. It was only a matter of time, right, Tyler? I
Oh,
mean,
and yeah. It had to have been, right? Because, first you destroyed his hand, which kind of set him back a little bit, in my opinion. And then, the Australian does what I think we all figured him to be extremely capable of doing and winning races and finishing up front. I mean, he's really, really solid. If we have actually a chance to throw up the Friday night point standings, I can't remember if we had those good to go or ready to go before we got started, but it wasn't shocking to me that Ashley Dodson gets a win, especially on a short track, right? He's a very patient driver. He's very, very smart. We'll pull up those points now. But yeah, patient driver there. And as we look there at the point standings, Keith Bradley leading the way with his 4 wins, Jeff Merck there second, Joey Doucette third. All those guys are based on wins. The thing you'll note though, Brady, Phil Pappas, he's not with the winning group. That's because he's missed too many races for that win and in eligibility. So he's actually on the outside looking in, and by a decent margin. Was at 21 points right now.
yeah, and he's actually going to miss again tomorrow night as the series heads to Phoenix Raceway. He actually notified me today that he was not going to be there. So, I mean, look, that just provides more opportunity for guys like, Jacob Klinkhart that's on that cut line, Chris Blanchard outside looking in, Brandon Bullock, Huck Wigginton. Some of those guys can get some points at Phoenix and try to make their way into these playoffs. That's approaching, and I would say it's week 13 Phoenix. The cutoff race for before the playoffs is next week, week 14 at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
The
So
new
that's going to be
configuration or the old?
the new one.
Oh, so super
Remember,
speedway race makes sense. Cut off.
remember that championship race in this series is at the old model for Atlanta. So they're
Right.
going to go to Atlanta twice. So I mean, there could be some last dash efforts to get into the playoffs on this Cops Friday Night Truck Series.
Yeah, I will say it's disappointing for Phil Pappas, but really, I think the bigger shock is you have guys like Jacob Klinkart and Jose Luis Rivera so far down in the point standings right now. Guys who we have high hopes for after being championship 6 drivers last season in the Friday night series. Definitely has been a disappointing season for them. A lot of inconsistency, a lot of crashes. Obviously, there's a few missed races in there as well, but two guys who we know can compete for wins, we know have the talent to compete for wins, just haven't really found a consistent footing this season.
Yeah, and look, shout out to Ed Osborne, because Ed's past couple of weeks has put in some, good runs. Maybe not necessarily top 10s, but, 11, 12, 13. So, you got to make your points. And Ed right
Yeah.
there, looks like 30, maybe 33 points to the good almost, I believe. But shout out to Ed Osborne for, putting himself in a position to make the playoffs.
Yep. And I noticed that actually. I said that to the guys I run with on Friday when I ran Kentucky. I was like, man, Ed has just gotten so much better recently. And I said the same thing about Cody, not too. I think Cody had a great race, I think, at Kentucky, I want to say as well. All right. And I told him afterwards, maybe it was Darlington, I can't remember, but it was one of the more complete races I had seen from our producer, Cody Knott and Ed. And they're both are really coming on strong. And I think they're finally comfortable being more aggressive. Right. I think that's a thing a lot of
Absolutely.
us struggle with early on.
And I'm looking at the first 12. Like you bring up Cody. Yeah, I'm really happy with Cody's performance. Even in the middle of the races, right? Like you see him up front more often, not just at the end. Kyle Hess, probably one of the most consistent drivers you'll find. You know,
Yep.
he just knocks some top tens, top fives. So there's no surprise that he's in the top 10. I'm looking at Taylor Peacock, 7th. Like shout out to Taylor. You know,
Yeah.
usually we see Taylor inconsistent, struggle, but he's putting some races together. I mean, we're 13 weeks into the season. You know, I mean, these guys don't have wins, but they have a lot of points. So shout out to those guys that's running real well this season.
Yeah. I do want to say again, huge shout out to credit up, but I want to say Taylor Peacock really deserves a lot of credit because I think last season I don't know if he made the playoffs or not. He had a 1 or 2 season stretch where he really struggled, and he's really started to put it together recently. And I think he's doing an absolutely bang on job this season in the Friday night series, putting his truck in a good position for good finishes. Right? Maybe not necessarily the wins, but for him, where we expect him to win are those super speedway races, right? We have Atlanta coming up in 2 weeks. I could see him taking the win there potentially, Brady. So definitely a lot there. I think we do need to talk though about the Jeff Merck Hunter Parsons incident at Richmond before we move on, because really it was kind of took the Friday night chats by storm for a while.
Absolutely. You know, horde racing. That's what it's all about. You know, you're getting down to crunch time. I'm sorry. And Hunter's a part-time driver in this series. Jeff's full-time.
Yep.
There's a little bit of disagreement, racing lines and new tires, different strategies. You know, people coming through the field. If you're on older tire, driver courtesy. In
Sure.
summary, is what it all
We can
boils
call
down
it that.
to, right? Driver
Sure.
courtesy. And some people understand it, some people don't. Sometimes you can't not necessarily say that they need to have it or they don't have to have it. I know
Yep.
I have my morals. I know you have yours. Everybody's different, especially when you get 40 guys in a session. You're going
Yeah.
to have 40 different opinions.
I agree.
But I don't want to say I necessarily think that Hunter did anything wrong or Jeff did anything right or vice versa. But the one thing we don't tolerate here is touching somebody under caution,
Yeah.
especially on purpose.
Yep.
And whenever it gets out of hand like it does, yeah, you're going to get DQ'd. And the race admin gave them the benefit of doubt to get off the track. They decided not to, so they were both DQ'd and finished 24th, 25th.
Yep.
Hunter gets the pass-through penalty for the next race. Jeff gets 25 points and no qualifying, but you have to also understand Jeff had an EOL in that race before that incident happened. So he
Yep.
was going
And
to
that
have no qualifying anyways. So the 25 point, in my opinion, is correct.
is the actual punishment, is the actual
Yeah.
penalty for the actions. And I think that's what people don't get, right? There was a lot of talk about, well, the penalties don't seem fair. Here's how I saw it, and I think you agree with me in the same way, right? Hunter, not a full time driver. So penalizing him points doesn't do anything. But giving him a pass through really does almost prevent him from having a chance at winning at whatever track we go to. It really does. It prevents him from definitely having a chance
Yeah,
to
I
win
mean, it's
money
a
in bonus
throwaway
stages.
race. We're
Yeah.
basically making them pay an entry fee to throw a race away.
Yep. I agree. But Merck, like you said, was already going to have no qualifying. So that's not really a punishment if that's already what he's going to get for an incident that was really prior to him retaliating to Hunter's actions, because he would have had the EOL from his self spin. And people may disagree with me, but he's behind the other car, Hunter Parsons, in the incident, and he just spins out behind him. Hunter didn't cause him to wreck. Clearly, he lost car control, similar to maybe what we see from Monday night's race. We can talk about that later, too, from this past weekend at Chicagoland. So he was already going to get the no qualifying, in my opinion. There wasn't a question about it. The 25-point penalty is the penalty, right? So, yeah, that kind of, it's like he loses essentially 2 to 3 stages worth of points, right? Merckx still kept his winning in, so nothing has changed regarding that. Um, so I don't know, and I also don't mind, you know, EOLs for drivers that self spin, and we're going to have that change take effect soon at the end of these seasons that both series are in, where a self spin EOL that doesn't collect anyone doesn't go against you to future race penalties, but it still does result in EOL because you hurt the flow of the race. And someone has brought up, why wait until next season to use the new EOL fix? And that's for consistency purposes, wholeheartedly. You have to be consistent with the rules that you start the season with to the rules you end the season with, because it's not fair
Absolutely.
to the guys who got penalized and had to do, an EOL or no qualifying the next race when they self spinned, versus someone who self spins now and doesn't have that same punishment. So I don't think you change the rules, and I don't think it's fair to.
Well,
Uh,
and to add that point, I think you're reading off of some of the questions maybe in the live chat, and I want to elaborate on that. We got guys that were suspended this season. Taylor Peacock on Mondays, Stephen Thomas on Fridays. If we go to the new system that I have in place for next season, whenever it starts on Mondays, um, now you're telling the guys, hey, you got to wait 4 races and then you're suspended. You don't think Steven's going to be upset about that? That he only had 3 opportunities,
I
So,
agree.
it plays a. You got to really think deep down inside and say, okay, well, if we get more lenient in the middle of the season, that changes the way points are. That changes the way races are ran. So it would only make sense as an admin or an owner of a league to say, hey, look, we know that we put this penalty system in place.
Yep.
We know it has flaws, but the only way we can fix it is if we're patient enough to run out the season
Yep.
and make it better for the following season. I feel like when people complain to me on the side or people voice their opinion, it's almost like we're going into the last race, the
Hmm.
last season. It's like, guys, I'm committed to this.
Yep.
We're going to run this until I give you a notice, and I would probably give you a 1 year notice.
Yeah.
But I'm committed to running season 3. I'm committed to running season 8 on Fridays. So just be patient. We'll get it. And I think the system was harsh, but until you put
But that's
the
fine,
system in
right?
place and then you provide data to back up the system, you don't know if it's right or wrong.
Yep.
So now that we have enough races under our belt, we can make tweaks to it to make it better.
Yeah. In my opinion, being too harsh early is fine, because it's harder to be weak and then get harsher, because no one takes you seriously, than to get harsher and then be a little bit more lenient, right? And
Correct.
also, harshness should deter the self spins, right? You shouldn't, you know, overly aggressively put your car in a position where you can't keep it under control. If you spin out on your own, it's because you lost talent. I mean, really, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Right.
You can call it whatever you want. You lost driver talent. It doesn't matter if there's someone below you. If they don't touch you, or someone above you, if they don't touch you, it's because you didn't have the talent to handle it.
And I'm not a believer, and I don't know if you were in this race or not, but a couple of seasons ago on Friday nights, Chris Cinnamon, we're at Auto Club.
Yeah.
He's running like third or fourth and spins out. Caution comes out. iRacing tells him to go back to third.
Hmm.
I don't believe that. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're gonna try to make this thing as realistic as possible and compare ourselves to other series in real life, I don't ever want to be NASCAR. I want to be Nazareth,
Right.
but I just feel like you should lose your position and you should go to the back for making that mistake and that caution coming out.
Well, it's no different than short track racing. In short tracks across the country, most short tracks run the rule of, if you are the cause of the caution in any way, shape, or form, you get an EOL. You go to the tail end of the field. So it's not
Correct.
like this is some newfound, unprecedented thing we're doing. Um, but I think that's to each their own and how they
And
view
and
it.
to be honest with you, I've kind of put some fillers out there, Tyler,
Yeah.
and I've talked to people on the side. It's not really the um, penalties in the race that guys have a problem with. Now, TJ does the best of his ability. He's like an umpire referee in a game. You can
Yeah,
argue the call, you can complain about it. I've put people in that position to humble them, like a Tim Hammond, who's helped out on
yeah,
Friday nights. And TJ does the job that nobody else wants to do.
I
We
agree.
all want to show up and race, and he's the one that's committed to showing up and, controlling the race and being an admin for it. And I would say that, he's 75 to 80% right. There's a lot of easy calls. 10 cautions in a race, he's getting 8 of them right, or 7.5.
It's
But
still not bad.
there's
That's
always
that's
two
yeah,
two or three incidents maybe, or even one, as we saw in Chicagoland. The first, there was 2 cautions. One of
yep,
them was Jeff Johnson, easy call,
yep,
and
self
then the
spin.
second one was the Blanchard. Now,
And I would still say that I think the majority of people still think it's the right call.
I would think so, and I agree with the call.
Yep, I do
If
too.
you start it and that's how it finishes, you deserve it. So, I mean, it's
It's
a
no
50
different
50
than the
call.
Blake Lothian EOL at Darlington 2 weeks ago.
Correct. Correct.
Blake spinning his tires causes the wreck, indirectly or not. Hidden spinning his tires causes a massive pileup on a restart. It's no different than someone making a save but losing control of their car and having it wash up. Yeah, your car was straight, great, but you took out 4 other drivers in the process.
Correct. Correct. And I agree with that. And like I said, I think it's more so of the people are running for a championship and don't want to get penalized for something that happened 2 weeks ago. And I kind of have a little bit of sympathy for that,
Yeah.
which is why I kind of modified it again.
Hmm.
The first one is just a warning.
I agree.
Nothing. No EOL, no qualifying. That's thrown out the window. So your first one is basically like, hey, we understand you made a mistake.
Hmm.
So we're good with it. But if you go into the next race, back to back races, now you're not going to get qualifying. Three
I agree.
times in a row, pass through, or I'm actually going to change that to a missed start because for some reason we have problems getting on pit road
I
under
think
green
that'd be
flag
better. I
position.
thought about that too.
Yeah,
I think
it,
that's a better idea.
the missed start is better. It really doesn't make TJ have to kind of watch for it or
Yeah.
regulate it. You're misstarting. You would be coming out of the pits anyways, as you
Hmm.
saw in Chicagoland with Newton and Newbert. They did the pass through penalty. Well, if they misstarted, they would be in the same spot, in my
Yep.
opinion.
And they didn't go a
So,
lap down. Credit to them. They
correct,
ran great.
correct. So the missstart, I think, is the better way to go than the pass through. And then the fourth
Yeah.
time, I mean, come on, if you race a whole month and you wreck people, I think it
Every
might be
race
time
for
you
a whole
take a
month.
break. Exactly. I
Yeah.
think you might need to take a break. So I think we're going in the right direction, Tyler. I really do. But I
Yep.
just need guys to bear with us. We've been doing this. You and I's been doing this since 2020.
Been
And
a while.
yeah. So I mean, 3 years with this group. Most of them, I would say, the majority of them. It's not the end of the world. Just give us a couple of more weeks, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Well, I think it's time we can move on to the hot laps. We're only doing 3 questions since we've had so much to get through. Really, there's going to be a lot for us to talk about on Monday nights. Um, there's really a lot's happening Monday nights. We're getting closer to that playoff, that championship 6 race. So definitely a little bit more to talk about in the Mondays, in my opinion. No offense to the concerns of Police Survivor Friday night series. Great racing there. They got 2 races till the end of the season. I think our next show, or maybe in 2 shows, will be a really deep dive on the Friday night series. But we're gonna hit the hot laps. Brady, you get to return us to the hot laps with the first question for me. Again, rules: minute 45 to answer, 45-second rebuttal.
Yes. So my question to you is, we're gonna kind of. I felt like the first question kind of needs to stay on the topic of the Friday night series.
Okay.
And we've seen winners, like Jeff Merritt, Keith Bradley, Joey Doucette, Ashley Dodson, Phil Pappas. The
Hmm.
list goes on. Uh, who, in your opinion, is the clear-cut favorite to win the championship on Friday night in the Cops Truck Series?
I mean, this is a cop out, but it's got to be Keith Bradley. I mean, I don't. I would say Doucette's a close second, given where the championship race is. It's a mile and a half old. Tire wear matters. Keith and Joey are super, super talented mile and a half drivers. We just saw Joey win on Monday at a tire wear track in Chicagoland. I don't think it plays into the hands of a driver like Jeff Merck, right? Jeff's 2 wins, short tracks. Ashley Dodson's win, short track. So if you're limiting me to those 4 drivers, which I don't think you are, but if I were to say of the drivers who have won, races that are locked into the playoffs, so sorry, Phil Pappas, you don't count. It's got to be Bradley. The problem is, could he, trip up on the way to that championship 6 race? I want to get up the schedule here on my phone real quick to kind of look at,
Well, the
what we're
last
looking
round
at
is
the rest of the way.
Martinsville. Well, I'll tell you. The
Oh, it's
first
Martinsville,
round,
Talladega. Okay,
yeah.
last round.
So the first round is Darlington, Watkins Glen, Homestead. The
Okay,
second
well,
round
Keith
is
Bradley's going to win one of those races.
second round would be Michigan, Dover.
Okay, Michigan, Dover. Bradley probably wins Dover. I think he gets enough points, though it doesn't matter.
The third round would be Martinsville, Talladega.
Bradley probably is top 5 at Martinsville, goes into Talladega pretty comfortably. He's a decent super speedway racer. I don't think there's a problem him getting to that final 6. So yeah, I'm comfortable saying Keith Bradley's the favorite. I think the playoffs shape up nicely for him. Not the best with the last round with given Dodson and Merck, but he'll be fine. What, you just agree with everything I say, Brady? No rebuttal? Brady, your mic's cut off. Unless I can't hear, and he's been talking well. Real quick, I want to give a big shout out to all of our sponsors here: Concerns of Police Survivors, Butt Kicker, The Glass Mechanic, everyone else who makes this league run, Pulse Poppers, Swim, DSR Electric, Hot Lap Podcast, Nazar 360 Racing Network. Who else out there? There's tons of other sponsors. Blanchard's Towing and Recovery, another big sponsor we have here. SimRacerHub.com still for the Monday Night Series. Huge shout out to them as well. I believe we also still have the Serve Pro caution. So again, huge shout out for them sponsoring our cautions this season. I do also want to give a special shout out to the guy who's been signing some of my race checks, and that's the owner of the Glass Mechanic, Mr. Morales. I know Brady wants to shout out Mr. Barnett later, but we'll wait. Brady, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry. I was having push to talk issues.
All right. Well,
but
your
no,
rebuttal, you're up.
yeah, and we'll get to some sponsors later because I want to give some shout outs later. But I only have 30. Reset my time for me, Cody.
Yeah. Reset the game clock.
So yeah, I agree with you, Tyler. The thing that intrigues me the most is the last 3 races: Martinsville, Talladega. We'll get into that a little bit later because I have another question about that. But I like the playoffs the way they're set up. I like Martinsville. I see guys like Stephen Thomas, Jeff Merrick, Keith Bradley, Joey Doucette performing there. Talladega, up in the air. I still think that Merrick and Bradley have enough points to maybe get themselves to the championship 6.
I agree.
So I would say that I would agree with you that the Keith Bradley is the favorite, right? He's the defending champion, so you got to beat the best to knock off the best. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Stephen Thomas going into Atlanta, old model, he races well there. I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen Thomas won it.
Yeah, and again, Joey Doucette as well has a big shot. He loves those tire wear mile and a half, so keep an eye out for him if he makes it to that championship 6. Brady, my first question, we're going to keep with the Friday night theme for another question, at least for me. I think this is the last one I have about Fridays, but mine is about failed retaliation. We're going back to the Merck Parsons incident first. I mean, it has to be the golden rule in racing. If you're trying to take someone out, don't take yourself out in the process. And I mean, it has to be one of the worst retaliation attempts I've seen in a while, Brady. I mean, kind of. I don't want to take anything from other podcasts, but you kind of have to be asking, what was he thinking with his move there? You got to lay back a little more and take him out, right?
Right, and I think looking back, I mean, if you're Jeff, you kind of come up on the side and bump them, and knowing, I've ran against Hunter Parsons enough to know that if I'm going to do that, that he's going to bump me back, right?
Yep.
It's almost surprising that Hunter didn't bump him to begin with, but he claims he revved up his engine, so that's why he turns down and whatnot, and it is what it is. I mean, we don't need the excuses. It's the
Nope.
the footage. The footage tells the tale, right? But if you're that mad at somebody and you know that, like Jeff even said after the race, I apologize and I understand you got to do what you got to do, or I got a penalty coming. Well, of course, but at the same time, if you're just going to do it, I wouldn't have done it under caution.
No.
Just because of the simple fact is I have respect for people that's running behind us. It would have
Yeah.
been maybe, McKinnon, Jose, and those guys that were kind of really behind there that could have got caught up in it. But man, just wait for it to go green and just, hey, I got my right front blown out, like pull a Matt Kenseth with Joey Logano almost, a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a bad acting job, and yeah, so he Hunter bumps him, but then he goes a little bit further. Hunter slows down and then just tails him into the wall, and Jeff's looking, reverse the wrong way, and it's like Jeff, like, come on, man, like you got to do a better job if you're going to be that bad at somebody. So,
Yeah.
especially if you're going to, warrant a 25-point penalty coming your way, like you got to make it
Yeah.
worth
Make
your while.
exactly.
So it just, yeah, it was definitely a failure, definitely a bad look. So maybe, hopefully, he learned his lesson.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Definitely, one, make it look better at least, or try to make it look better. If you're going to, maybe try and avoid a penalty, but if you know you're gonna get a penalty, freaking send it to the moon, man. Just full send, Um, I don't know. It
Got
was
to do a better
entertaining.
job of it in practice.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, it's so much more entertaining in practice too. Sometimes I mean, it was entertaining. I thoroughly enjoyed the incident. I respect both drivers. They're super super talented guys. I wish that they both had more patience sometimes, or maybe not patience, but a longer fuse. I think they both were acting a little bit childish, but definitely talented race car drivers, and I respect most of what they do on the track. I just thought it was a very funny incident.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think we could all learn from it. And I think we've done enough to tell the guys like, hey, we're not going to put up with it either. So
Yeah.
moving on to my next question, which is question number 3 for hot laps. Um, my question is this: the playoff format. It kind of involves. It's going to take me a while to get this one out to you, Tyler, because I got to
Okay.
explain it a little bit. It kind of goes in time with the All Star race, right? We've done non-points All-Star races, and we've seen a lack of entries. So now we turned it into a points race. So
Yep.
instead of 14 regular season races, we have 15. Instead of 2 drops, you have 3 drops. So we kind of worked with the guys, but we want that All-Star race to mean something, right? It's a crown jewel race. We want to give out trophies for it. My question to you is, if we had to add a points race, which is the All Star race, no matter what, would you rather see that extra race in the regular season, or would you rather us change the playoff format and add an extra race in the playoffs?
So I'm going to say this: if we're changing the playoffs, right? I want the round of 10 to be 3 races, the round of 14 to be 3 races, and the round of 20 to be 2 races. And my reasoning behind it is this: 20 drivers is a lot, right? You'll get a good enough points battle in 2 races. But I feel like there should be more incentive on performing better longer later in the playoffs versus earlier in the playoffs. So if you're going to shift that points race from the regular season to the playoffs, I would just say shift 1 race to the final round and shift that 3 race round, that's the first round, to the second round. And I think it would be really, really good if we're going to keep the playoffs. I personally would love a 7 week chase system, all points. Personally, that's what I would love. Kind of like the old NASCAR chase in '04. I think that is the best championship system out there. I don't like a regular season title where someone wins it with, freaking 10 weeks left because, you have a guy like Keith Bradley just out here dominating the field with 4 wins and he's just crushing points or something crazy like that, right? But I do like the idea of a chase. 7 weeks, get whatever points you get, you get. Call it that way. If we're going to keep the playoffs, though, which I think is better for television, better for drama, I want first round 2, second round 3, third round 3, and then the fourth round just be the championship race. As long as it's not at a short track, I think it has to be a mile and a half. Definitely should not be at a super speedway.
Well, yeah, I would agree with you. We've had some thoughts about doing super speedway as the championship race.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Terrible idea.
it goes kind of hand in hand because you just don't know what to expect, right? And I'm going to save a little bit of that for the topic is where that race should be. My mind is telling me to just make the regular season 15 races, right? Because you
Okay.
know people are going to show up, right? The numbers are going to be there. Just put it in the regular season. I would love to. My heart wants me to put it in the playoffs though, because I do want to extend the playoffs a little bit better and make it a little bit longer. My only worriness is the
Car
entries,
count.
the field,
Yeah.
core count. So
I agree.
that's why it kind of went there for right now. But like I said, we still have about 3 weeks until the new season starts. So you never know, Tyler. You might have a great idea right there.
Yeah, so I do want to say real quick before we move on to my next question for you, and it has to do with this. I think we could change the All Star race to make it better and not have to require big car counts. You do is you bump up the entry fee just a little bit, maybe like $15 versus the 12 or whatever, 10 or however much we're doing for the season. Only pole sitters and winners, and then a fan vote. And there's no racing in, and then it's a short track, 50 laps. Caution laps don't count. I think that would be awesome. Or you could do it at a super speedway, 25 laps, caution laps don't count. I think that would be so good. I think that'd be awesome. Moving on, though, we're going to talk about other special events in NASRA here. My question to you, so we just finished up the King of Daytona a few weeks ago. We were prepping for it. I think the last time we did a show was actually live during the qualifying session for King of Daytona. You and I hopped on. I was in the actual Daytona International Speedway infield. We talked a little bit while that happened. Decent first big event put on by NASRA. Great entertainment. Cole Hendrickson gets the win. Thoughts on this event and the potential for future events, and how do we get more interest in it, right? We had decent amount of entries or people interested, but the final race I think only had 25 trucks, which we really were hoping for closer to 40. How do you think we can improve on it?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, it's tough whenever you're competing, right? Because you have big name super speedway racing out there. I don't know if the night is the best night Thursday when
Yeah.
you have a lot of super speedway racing going on.
Yep.
One idea for sure is to take a little bit more time with it than we did previously. I think it was kind of hurried up and put together just because the simple fact is we wanted to see what kind of potential it had. I don't think 25 entries is a failure in any kind of
No, I don't
way.
think it's a failure either.
And I think it helped out with just letting everybody race in the first two duels. The goal is to have 40 plus trucks show up for qualifying, have 30 trucks in each duel, and have a 43-man field that is. But I don't think it was a failure, but the potential is maybe uh, push it back to 30 minutes to 45 minutes.
Okay.
I've heard of a later start is better for some reason. I've heard that that's
West
more of a
Coast guys,
prime
probably.
time, yeah, prime time spot. So maybe pushing the time back, maybe picking another night that's less competitive.
Yeah,
But we are going to do King of Talladega, but I want to take my time with it this time. I
I
know
agree.
the guys are man, we want to hurry up and but I want to put a little bit more time into it. Maybe try to get some sponsors involved, but just make it more convenient for more people to join it so that we can have better numbers than we had in the previous King of Daytona. Also, we got the holidays coming up, so it's going to be tricky trying to get it in. We might try
Yeah.
to do it to where we kind of qualify before Thanksgiving, and then we kind of hurry up and get it done before Christmas time. So the holidays are going to be tricky, but we're definitely going to do King of Talladega. I can tell you that.
Yeah. and I look forward to that event. Um, it should be good. I actually quite enjoyed watching the King of Daytona. I didn't get to participate just due to work and everything going on in my life, but I thought the racing was great. Again, shout out to Cole Hendrickson for getting the win. Really solid racing. I think top three was Cole Hendrickson, Chris Blanchard, and Steve Barnett
That's
for that
correct.
event. Really, really solid racing. Not a lot of wrecks. Very respectful, but very, very impressive runs by everyone. Excited for King of Talladega. Um, I would like to see us do the special events as often as we can, but obviously it's very hard to get the numbers and figure out the timing and the scheduling. And I think sponsors will help draw that in if that helps boost the prize money, so people don't think it's just the entry fees going towards payouts.
Correct, and I agree.
Final round, Brady.
So my final round, my fifth question, well, my third question, but the fifth question on hot laps. You kind of brought it up a little bit when you were talking about it.
Okay.
Talladega, the Monday night series heads the Talladega Super Speedway. It's a cutoff race. It's the second
Yep.
race in the final round, the round of 10. And for the viewers that don't know this, when we get to the round of 10, that used to be the round of 8, the points reset to 0. So
Yep.
those top 10 drivers that made it to the round of 10, we were all at 0 points going into Chicago, or should I say 2,000 points.
Yep.
We head to Chicago, we complete that race. Now we go to Talladega. The question is, do you like Talladega being in the spot that it always seems to be, where the pressure's ramped up? You never know. Nobody's safe. The only driver that's safe is Joey Doucette. He won
Yeah.
Chicagoland. So there's
Well, you
five
still got
more
to show
spots to be
up,
filled.
but yeah.
So do you like the spot that this race is in?
So I will say this. One, I know it's not going to change no matter what I say here because we're always going to have a super speedway race as like one of the last races of the final round or close to the last race of the final round. I do think we have a change in a future season where it's not the final race of the final round, but it's like the second to last race, which I do actually like.
Next season, Friday nights, season 8.
Yeah, season 8 Friday nights, you're right. I remember
It's the
seeing that.
first race. It would be the Chicago race right now instead of next week.
But I actually prefer this. And I hate saying that as someone who hates super speedway racing because I think it's talentless and it's just chaos. And can you survive and get lucky at the end when the wrecks eventually do happen? But I can't also say it's talentless when the same guys keep winning over and over again. So they're clearly both lucky and they have something figured out. I like it though because now instead of everyone riding around for the first two stages, there are plenty of drivers who can point their way in and a lot of very, very tight points battle on Monday night. I think it works for that reason because those stage points are going to matter a lot for about 7 drivers. And maybe you're safe. Maybe Hunter Parsons is safe. I would say the top 3 are probably pretty safe depending on car counts. But I will say that the first 2, really, the cut line is very, very chaotic. And I'm excited to see how that plays out because I think we're going to see a lot of interesting strategy. Drivers like myself and Joey Doucette, who either are locked in or not in the playoffs anymore, I'm just going to ride around in the back and hopefully I can get some cash at the end of the race. But I know I have teammates who are on the cut line or not, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle it.
I'm going to say this. I love the fact that this race is where it's at in the current format. But if
Yeah.
you took your idea and made it a 3 race round, I would. It's going to be in there. It would be in there, right? It's got to be in there. In
Yeah.
my opinion, I'm sorry, my opinion. Talladega will be in that final round. I will never change it. That's one thing I'll put my foot down about. I like the way it. Look, me and Adam Newton's been talking all week long. I'm 20
Yeah, you
points to the
talk a
good, and I'm
lot to other
nervous.
competitors, by the way.
Yes.
I'll discuss that in the final
Yeah.
lap.
Let me finish this real quick. But if you took your idea for 3 races, I might consider putting it as the second race, right? Because it kind of, and I know I'm going over my 45 seconds,
I don't care. You're fine.
but but it puts you in a situation where you have to still race for stage points because you don't know what's going to happen. And then let's just say hypothetically, Kentucky or a mile and a half, Darlington's the next week. You still have to gain points because you don't know if you're going to win Talladega or Darlington. So I would consider moving it to the second race.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be a two race round, I love it being here just because I feel the pressure. I know
Yeah.
the other competitors feel the same way I do. And again, I'm saying there's 20 points to the good. I'm not
Oh
going to
yeah,
say
I
my
think you're safe.
strategy, but this is what it's supposed to be, Tyler. It's not supposed to be easy to win these championships. I
I
say this
agree.
over and over again. Just because you're a Keith Bradley and you've dominated the regular season on Friday nights does not mean that Keith Bradley is going to make it to the Champ Six. You have to be on your game throughout these playoffs to make it to there. And the only person that's smiling right now or laughing, and that's going to be continuing laughing the whole race at Talladega, is Joey Doucette because he knows that he's going to Auto Club as the only driver right now.
I agree. And I think that is what makes it good. And I would agree, 2 races, it should be the last race. But I do like the whole idea, 3 races, it should be the middle race because that'll really separate the field, I think, for that final race. But it'll still create enough good controversy for that final points race. And I honestly would say make Darlington the last race of the season for the
That's
playoffs before the
that's not bad.
championship.
That's not bad.
Talladega, Darlington.
That's not
I
bad.
well, you know me,
Hey,
I love some
hey,
Darlington.
we we got to bring this up when we're making the schedule, buddy.
Yeah, but I get shot down because we got to figure out, the Board of Appeals has these slots, and I only get like these slots, and then I have to convince like Chris Cinnamon or someone who picks freaking Legacy Texas or something stupid to figure out how to slot it all
Hey,
in.
but that's your bromance, man. Come on now.
I know I can't be too mean to Chris. Final question of the hot laps, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. We hinted at it, and this topic gets me a little frustrated and fired up. Topic is fixed setups, and I'll be the first one to say, ever since Makoni Setup Shot took over the truck fixed setup series on iRacing, the fixed setups have been bad. They haven't been good. If you could change anything about the way that the setups drive for most of the tracks as a generalization, how would you change them?
Well, I will also criticize McConey. I'm a fan of them.
Yep.
Jacob Reeves, I know he does a lot with those guys. I love Jacob. Shout out to him. I I think the setups are horrible in the sense that the fixed setups, the officials are racing at Darlington at night. But maybe I don't want to race at night at Darlington in my league, so I put it at noon or morning or afternoon, and it's just bad. It's doesn't accommodate for the conditions that you want to run, whether it's daytime or night. It's only for that official race. My idea, and I never understood why iRacing doesn't allow this, or why it's never really happened yet since I've been on iRacing, is have a when you do a fixed setup. Now I'm a fan of fixed setups.
I
I
agree.
w-
I
I
think they make
want
the racing good.
I want to get in the session and I want to pick the setup and just go racing. That's what it plug and play, right? I mean, for
Yep.
guys that don't want to sit there and waste money, I wouldn't say waste money, spend money and take the time to make a setup. I'm not there yet in my iRacing career. So I
Nope.
want to go racing, but give me an A setup, a B setup, and a C setup, and let me practice them and what accommodates my driving style. My driving
Yep.
style is not the same as Tyler Dittmer or Cody Knott or Keith Bradley, Chris Cinnamon. Let the setup dictate of how my driving set it is, and then I pick it for that race. And it could be the same session. Like we go in the session and we got to choose from it, right? When we're loading into it, we got to pick one of those setups to meet our driving style, and I think that's the way it should be. Chicagoland, we drove off the right rear, and it was awesome. It was amazing to drive a loose truck. So I just think that's the way it should be set up, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll agree. And even if they don't want to do 3 setups, give me a day and a night setup alone, let alone. Like, 'cause there is such a drastic difference in how these trucks handle, most cars handle in day versus nighttime. And I will say, I enjoyed the looseness of the truck in 1 and 2, but I thought the truck was absolutely horrible in 3 and 4. Just
I would
did
agree.
not
I would
want to
agree.
did not want to drive the way it should. Um,
Correct.
it wasn't loose per se. I mean, it could be at times, but it was more just tight. And when you're completely one way on one end of the track and completely the other way on the other end of the track. Yeah, it happens in real life sometimes, but generally, if you're one way, you're going to be that way throughout the lap. Versus if you're tight, you're going to be plowing through both corners. So I would like to see maybe a day versus a night setup, and also just make the trucks generally looser as a whole. I think it makes better racing.
But also the track temp changes, the temperature of the day changes. I
Yep,
mean, the track changed at Chicagoland in the middle of the race. So
it did.
I just think that, to your point, I've always said A and B. I answering your question, I added the C for a third one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there needs to be multiple options whenever you're picking a fixed setup.
Or just maybe even like if you think a race is going to go some way, you can take a gamble and give me a short run, a middle run, and a long run truck. A truck that's just going to be great super late in the run, but if you get a late race caution, you are dead to right. Versus a truck that fires off great for 5 to 10 laps, but if you run for 40 laps, man, you're going to be hating life.
I
I think
agree.
that'd be
I
fun
agree.
too.
I just think there's enough technology out there, man, that to make this
Yeah.
happen.
I'd also say iRacing needs to go away from pure fixed setups and be like, it's fixed setup, but any adjustment you can make on a pit stop, like tire pressures or like adding a spring rubber or a track
Wedge.
bar, it'd
Yeah,
be awesome. Like
just like you
NASCAR
used to
video
be able.
games had
Exactly,
for many
exactly.
years. I'd love to see
And
that.
that's what I would love. If they allowed you to do that, we would go to that because I feel
Oh,
like that would
100%.
even the playing field even more for our competitive. I mean, on Monday nights we'll get into that a little bit. We're on race 21. We've had 15 different winners out of 20 races.
Yep.
I mean, so it's competitive. It's the most competitive league I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
But you add that factor to it, I think it makes it even more competitive.
Yeah. We're going to move on to that Monday night series now, finishing up the hot laps. Hope you all enjoyed that back and forth. Definitely insightful, and I think we covered a lot of good topics there. The Monday night series, though, it's been a while. We've crossed the playoff boundary. We've crossed 2 rounds, in my opinion, or not my opinion. Factually, we've crossed 2 rounds as well. Let's first finish up the regular season. Blake Lothian wins at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Mike Sargent, though, getting the job done on another road course at Mosport. Just really a shellacking he put on the field there. I mean, it wasn't really competitive at all. And then Chris Blanchard wins at Daytona to end the regular season, but it doesn't put him in the playoffs because he's missed too many races.
Absolutely. What a heartbreaker, huh? I mean, missed that race, but rules are rules. Didn't meet the criteria, but it would have been nice. It would have been a great storyline, right, Tyler? Race
Oh,
your
it,
way into the
100%.
playoffs. So,
It
I
would have been.
mean, and what a great race at Daytona, I would say. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, there was some controversy at the end with guys like Jose kind of plowing into people under the white flag conditions, which we need to, as a group, I think, do a better job of that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, a great race, and yeah, man, just Chris Blanchard, another new winner to the series. And if he would have just made one more start,
Yep. Highline Racing actually goes back to back as Steve Barnett, a driver who wasn't in the playoffs, wins the first playoff race at Charlotte Motor Speedway, locking him into the second round of the consolation bracket. There's a pretty decent prize there of $150 to finish 21st in the standings. And then Adam Newton wins at Bristol, and Hunter Parsons wins Rockingham. And I guess, and I'll admit it, the big storyline of the first round was me not advancing. It had to have been the regular season
oh,
champion
absolutely,
not
hands
advancing.
down.
It has to be. And I will say this. I made a mistake at Bristol that put me in a bad spot after missing Charlotte. So I was already one race in the hole. My mistake at Bristol cost me the round wholeheartedly. I missed the round by 2 points
Correct.
with missing a race and running really well at Rockingham. And it was frustrating. It was definitely frustrating. I thought I was close and just wasn't close enough.
Absolutely. And I
Uh,
mean, look again.
yeah,
That's why this format's set up the way it is. I
I
mean,
agree.
we've seen it. We've seen it with Kevin Harvick in real life. Kyle
Yeah.
Larson. I mean, we've seen big names get knocked out, and
To be
you
fair,
were the
their
favorite.
choke jobs were far worse than mine.
Well,
They didn't
well,
miss a
yeah,
race.
absolutely, absolutely. But still, it's
It's a
it's kind
shock.
of yeah. I mean, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Because you were one of the favorites. I wouldn't say to win the championship, but to be in the final six.
See, the
And
thing
now
is,
that spot opens up for somebody.
yeah, and I think though it was a good thing that I didn't advance because I ended up missing the first race of the second round at Milwaukee, which really just prevented a driver from who could have competed the rest of the way from advancing. So I think I'm glad it ended the way it was because obviously I would not have advanced out of the second round because I missed the the uh, the Milwaukee race. Which Joey Doucette, man, talk about a driver who's been on fire recently. Wins Milwaukee and then had a chance. I'm pretty sure it was him and Maurer. Had a chance to win Darlington and just overdrove it, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, lost talent for sure.
Well, Maurer ran
Uh,
out of gas
yeah, but
coming
not
off
at
the
that
pole.
point.
Yeah, he ran out of gas after he got hit.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
So
seas parted, Brady.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that pink 34 just comes straight through and gets his second victory of the year. I mean, congrats, man. I mean, it's I mean, I'm not going to say that you didn't deserve it because I mean, you were there, right? You had to be in position to win it.
And I ran them
But
down the last 10 laps. Like, let the record show I was 5 seconds behind them with 5 to go, and I was on their bumper going into 3 and 4.
yeah, and I had pedal issues for some reason.
Yeah, you really got screwed out
Traveling.
of that race. You were running well.
Well, I wouldn't say that I was going to win it, but I definitely got screwed
You had a
out of
top
it.
five
You're
truck.
correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joey. I mean, Milwaukee. Man, they had a lot of
Probably
guys
should have
that
won Darlington. Probably
they,
should have
they
won
had
Darlington.
they had a lot of guys that were running well. Hunter comes to mind,
Yep.
myself, um, Adam Newton for the most part. I mean, there was the track changed, and it just benefited. I think Joey Doucette's racing style, driving
Yep.
style. We go to Darlington, win the pole, win the first stage, kind of going there. Blake's coming, Nate's coming. And then, like you said, Nate runs out of gas. I questioned when he pitted on lap. I think it was 108. I heard,
I thought it was too early.
and we all had to go to like 110. So it doesn't surprise me that he ran out.
Yeah.
Um, I know Joey gets kind of into him a little bit. They kind of wreck. You win. Great job, deserving. And then we go to Chicagoland. Like
And
at
Joey
that
was the
point we
yeah.
reset.
Oh yeah. And,
Go
and no
ahead.
offense to anyone, I'll say this from the beginning, near the end of stage one, Joey was the best car.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
could tell from early on that he was faster than the rest of us. Jason Morales wins the first stage. I kind of play defense for him because I know he's in the playoffs. I'm going to run second in that stage. Stage number two, you make a great pit strategy call, go out and steal the stage win on like a 2 or 3 lap restart on fresh tires while everyone else stayed out. Really, really smart move there. And then it paid off for you because we didn't have a late race caution because you were out of tires. We get a caution with 20 to go or 15 to go. You are finishing probably 20th.
Absolutely. I knew it was a gamble. It paid off.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit after the race. But I felt like I I say this all the time, and it seems like it goes in one ear and out the other for drivers, but people just don't understand how big stage points are, and they're
I agree.
underrated. And when I felt like, okay, Jason wins that stage.
Yeah.
You say you play defense. I mean, you were going to be up there. You and Jason had the best trucks that first stage. Me and
Short
Joey were
runs were
kind of
great.
talking because we're working together, kind of because we don't really have many people in our Discord. They don't have many people showing up on their team, so it makes 5 people. So we're working and we're talking, and that caution comes out, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna go back to green, and there's gonna be about 5 to 6 laps.
Yeah.
And Joey's like, "Are you pitting?" And I'm like, man, it seems like the right thing to do right here because I think people will follow,
And
and
if
I
you did,
I
Adam
want
Newbert followed you,
obviously if I do it, I kind of want to be the first truck on fresh tires,
which
and
you were.
so which yep, and so it kind of plays out to where I think a couple of you are going to go down, and I'm like, do I want to stay out? But then none of y'all go, and I'm like, I'm going. But then
Yeah.
I look in the rearview mirror, and I'm like, damn, I thought more would come. And then I come out and I start going, oh well, maybe I'm going to be 12th. and then I'm going to be 14th. And then I'm like, damn, I'm 17th. Maybe this wasn't the right move. But I just put it to the floor and just hope
And
it
those
sticks.
tires
And
mattered so much. I mean,
oh
it it,
yeah,
it was huge. I mean,
I
I
want to
could see
say
you coming.
I was at least 8 tenths of a second faster than Carry Tribute when I was catching him. I know that.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Other than Carey, you're probably a second faster in the field at that point. I will
Absolutely,
say, dirty air was a huge factor. Uh,
absolutely.
Adam Newton doesn't go a lap down after doing his pass through because Jason Morales just can't pass him on old tires and dirty air because there's not enough off throttle time late in the run. There was more than I expected, but there still wasn't enough unless you made a mistake in 1 and 2, getting on the gas too soon and got sideways. 3 and 4, there was
Yeah.
just not enough off throttle time. It was
And look,
too fast.
Adam Newbert, shout out to him. He joined us again on Monday night. He's been out for
Yep.
3 months, but he showed up and he did the same strategy with me, and he got caught in the back. He couldn't pass everybody like I could.
I think he finished
Uh,
seventh in the stage.
yeah,
He finished like, just a little bit
he was
behind
on
me.
the outside row. I was on the inside row, so it took him a little bit more time to get through traffic. I just
Yeah.
made it 3 wide. I had to. I felt like
Yep.
the whole reason of taking the tires was to win the stage. If you don't win the stage, it's a failure. I don't care about second, third, fourth, fifth. I make it 3 wide on Lance Miller. I make it 3 wide on Justin White. I take advantage of those guys, but I had to. I had to drive like I mean I can't say the word I want to use, but I had to drive like that to get up there. And then I take it 3 wide on you and Joey, I believe.
Yeah.
I get cleared, and then it's me versus Kerry. Whether he takes the high line, the low line in 3 and 4, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pass him,
Oh yeah.
and I get it done. And now it's praying that it goes green, which it did. I got lucky. But I just didn't have anything for Joey at the end.
He was just so fast. He was so fast.
He was so
He had the
good.
best long run car.
Absolutely. And I will say, well, I'm not going to say his notes or whatnot, but we were running different ratios and brake bias and stuff like that just because it fits my driving style better. But I think that kind of played into his hand a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I will say Hunter Parsons, another really, really fast run for him. He's third in the point standings. If we want to pull up those point standings, we're looking at the main primary bracket first, and then we'll look at the consolation bracket afterwards. There's a lot to talk about here, Brady. A lot of
Absolutely.
important things. Look at this playoff bracket, ladies and gentlemen. 3 drivers. Yes, that's 3 drivers tied for the last 2 spots in the championship 6. Joey Doucette with the win locks himself in as long as he starts next week. Brady, you're up 20 points. Hunter's up 15 points. Nathan Maurer's up 7 points. And then Adam Newton, Joey Stires, Jason Morales all tied. Then you have 4 points back to Kerry Tribune. And then you have, or no, is that 1 point? Maybe I'm blind.
Yeah, that's 1 point for Kerry.
Yeah, it's 1 point. And then 3 to Miller.
Yep.
And then
3.
11 to White.
13.
13, correction. So, I mean, we come to Talladega and we talked about how I think the stages are going to be a big deal. 13 points off the cut line. You win both stages, Justin White. You are probably ahead of those other drivers ahead of you on points. You're probably looking good.
Well, I mean, you think about it like this. The way I'm thinking is, let's just say Newton, Stires, and Morales don't get stage points, and Kerry gets 1, Lance Miller gets 3, and Justin White gets 13. We've got 5 drivers. Wait, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers even going into the final stage.
Yeah.
Now you do get a bonus point for leading a lap, leading the most laps.
0 incidents. That point may
0
matter.
incidents. Yeah. So I mean, this is what it's about, Tyler. Is all I can say. I know people
It's so
might not be a
good.
fan of it. I know people might have a different opinion of it. It's fine. I don't care. But from an owner standpoint, this is why we show up for 25 weeks out the year and we do this because it comes down to this. And look, I might be I might be sounding like a broken record right now. I might be sounding ignorant or conceited. I got 20 points next to my name and I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I'm locked in to the
I
championship
think you
6.
should. I think you should.
But
I think you should.
I mean, hey, I've been wrecked on lap 5 or 10
True.
of these races before. And I don't know what my strategy is going to be at right now. It changes every day just because I have a different feeling about this race, but there's a possibility that I could not get stage points and other guys could.
That's
Jason
true.
Morales. Jason, I could not get a stage point. Jason Morales could get 13, and now he's 7 spots away from me. I
Yeah.
mean,
Car counts
it's
may help
pressure.
you. Obviously, we see lower car counts in the playoffs, so I think I super speedway races. Anyone who's eligible, I expect to show up. Right, you had to have started 7 races during the regular season. If we want to pull up the consolation bracket here next, another really great uh, bracket we have going for us. Consolation bracket is just absolutely entertaining. Um, but here we go. You see Tim Hammond. I would say he's looking pretty for that 21st position. I mean, plus 17 though, not locked in. Anything could happen, right? Chris Blanchard on the outside looking in. Taylor Peacock 22 points out. I think he would probably have to be in a win and in scenario, in my opinion, to make the final 6 of the consolation bracket.
No matter
Really,
what, because he didn't start at Chicagoland, so Taylor has to win no matter what. Oh no,
true.
no,
He
I'm
has to
sorry.
win. Well, no,
Taylor
he didn't
has the
start
point.
Chicago, and he has to do it on points then.
Taylor was at Chicago. I thought he missed Chicago.
No, I'm saying if he did miss Chicago, then it doesn't matter if he wins. He
Yeah, he
has to
has to
get it on
point his
points.
way in. He has to point his
Okay.
way in. I'm sorry.
It's going to be super hard. He has to go out, probably win both stages and win the race.
Correct. Correct. Which it's not impossible,
Impossible.
but
Yeah,
it's going to be tough.
I agree. Um, yeah, just absolutely interesting. And I don't know if we have a team standings graphic. I don't think we do. But I do want to mention the team standings because we have 2 races left. Highline Racing plus 19 over Brute Force Motorsports, and then another 2 points back to Swim. Highline Racing, I believe, gets the title if they score at least 5 points, 5 team points, which means they would have to be the 6th best team at a minimum. So really, a top 5 will lock them in for the team championship this week at Talladega.
Well, if they're plus 11, plus 12 going into the finale, it's a deadlock. You know,
Yeah, it's a
that's
done deal.
pretty much what I almost wanted to announce it, but I didn't want to jinx it because anything
Yep,
could
not
happen.
there yet.
But
Yeah,
but if Highline Racing is plus 12 after Talladega, they are the season 2 team
correct.
champion, rightfully so. They show up. You guys just show up. I know that you're part of that team over there on
Yep.
Mondays. Chris Blanchard, Steve Bornett, Jason Morales, Hunter Parsons. I mean, well deserved.
Yeah,
They
5
knock
wins
off.
on the season for Highline.
Yeah, they
It's
knock
been
off.
a solid year.
Yeah, they knock off Mission One Esports as our inaugural team champion season 1. So it'd be Mission One, and it's most likely going to be Highline. So
Did Mission One win it? I thought Swim won the team championship season 1
Mission
on
One,
Monday.
Mission One.
Mission One
Justin
stole it from them.
White was with them. Brady, myself.
Oh,
Let's see. We had who do we have? Kyle Hess, Brady LaBeouf, Justin White. I'm trying to think of who we had on that team. No, I don't think Ed was on the team at that time. I'm trying to think of who the other 2 drivers were. Because Sean and Tim didn't join until their team kind of fell apart there at the end. So, oh, Jason Morales was on the team.
yeah, he was.
Jason
Highline
left
Racing didn't
me.
exist
Yeah,
until this year.
Jason left me to go start Highline.
Yep.
So it was me, Kyle, Jason, Justin, and I can't think of the 5th one.
Yeah, it might have only been a 4 driver team rules at that
Maybe
time,
so.
so that would make
Maybe
sense.
so. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I mean,
Mission One
still,
was your season 1 team champion. So
yeah. I mean, you look at 5 wins for the team this season. Blanchard got a win at Daytona, Barnett at Charlotte, Hunter wins at Rockingham, I win at Richmond and Darlington. Really, we give Morales a hard time because he's the only guy who hasn't won a race on the team, and he owns the team. You
correct.
know,
Correct. But I
so
mean, look, he's close. It's only a
oh
matter
yeah,
of
he's
time.
been
Don't count
close,
him
and
out for
he's a Champ
Talladega.
Six driver, or he might be a Champ Six driver. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
He's on the cut. He's tied for a 3-way tie, and unfortunately, due to tiebreakers, he'd be on the outside looking in due to his finish at Chicagoland.
And that brings up a topic of discussion. It was brought up the Discord. I had to bring it up. Was the tiebreaker rule? It
Yep.
goes to highest finish of that round, which
Yep.
is why the bracket shows Stires and Newton in there, because they have a 6th and a 7th place finish compared to Morales' 20th place finish at Chicagoland.
Yep.
So Jason's got some work to be done, and I would not be surprised if it comes down to a tiebreaker for one guy getting in and it doesn't.
Yeah, it definitely could. Maybe even a second tiebreaker, which would be stage points, which Morales does have the advantage in right now. So if Morales goes out,
And
finishes sixth or seventh, and ties with the other two on points the rest of the way, he'd probably get the advantage on stage points.
absolutely. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about the consolation playoffs as you brought it up.
Yeah,
I mean, I had this idea going into this season. I think it brings a new, added kind of deal to the series to where people, we live in this world where these guys don't have to really show up, but they do. Some guys are committed to the whole season if they don't make the playoffs, but then some guys just say, "Hey, I'll just go and run next season." I
yeah,
like that we've added this format
it's good.
because it keeps the guys interested. I know there's a little bit of disagreement with the payments or whatnot. It's actually $125. I've kind of split it to where that third place gets the same amount as the 21st place. But these guys are important to the series. They've showed up. Our core counts have been decent through the playoffs. We're still
Yeah,
showing 25 to 28 guys, which I feel like means something to us, right? Because it's a bigger deal. Because if your playoff drivers, wreck out and they finish 25th because of lack of core count, it's not that big of a deal because they're still getting good points. But if you
right.
got 40 guys that show up, it's a bigger deal to these playoff guys, right?
Oh,
So
100%.
I, I want to make this a bigger thing, and I think it's bringing a lot of talk to the drivers because we got Tim Hammond, Steve Barnett talking a lot of trash to each other. I mean, so it's
Ridiculous.
being awesome. It's
It
just
is
an
entertaining.
awesome thing. So I love it. I'm glad we came up with it, and we're going to continue doing this thing.
I agree. I will say, again, huge shout out to Jason Morales for putting the team together at Highline Racing. He's really put together a very talented group of individuals who can run race as well. There is going to be a lot of silly season news coming up in the following weeks that we'll discuss for the Monday night series. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of drivers in new
A
places.
lot, a
A
lot.
lot, yeah. It's kind of ridiculous. I do want to bring up something though we started on the Monday night series, which is our driver poll, kind of similar to like the coaches AP or the coaches poll in college football, where drivers after
Which I
each week would
love.
get
I'm
a
so glad you did that. I love
yeah.
it.
It's a little poll that gets sent out to the drivers, and they rank their top five, and then I compile the results and give out the results. And the current poll has already been distributed to the drivers. We've already gotten 6 or 7 responses. Hoping to get a few more. We had great turnout for week 2 of the poll, and that poll saw uh, 5 different drivers receive first place votes. Uh, Joey Doucette ended up leading the poll. Is currently number 1 ranked amongst the drivers. Hunter Parsons second. Nathan Maurer third. Myself in the 4. Joey Stires in the 5th. Adam Newton, and then also Brady LaBeouf mentioned you guys two 6th and 7th in the standings. But important to note, Joey Stires and Joey Doucette, the two Joeys, actually got the same amount of first place votes with 3 apiece. Hunter Parsons and Nathan Maurer each got 2 first place votes apiece, and myself got 1. Um, I will say it's very interesting kind of seeing the voting trends and seeing how people are voting and having access to that data. Very entertaining. I quite enjoy it. I think it gives us some good banter and see how we all view each other as talent on the track. Some guys obviously take it a little bit more seriously than others, but that makes it fun, and I think that's the best part of it.
Absolutely. And I mean, it kind of shows a little bit of respect from your peers, right? That you
Yeah,
you race from, and some people, like you said, take it serious, some don't. But I think for the most part, I want to believe that they take it serious because I do. Right. I'm
I
I'm
do as well.
I'm not gonna just go in there and click names because they're my friends, my teammates. I'll be honest with you, I didn't click any of my teammates. And I didn't. I want to, but I did rightfully so vote for myself, but I didn't put myself first,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Because I
no,
don't I
I've
don't think
never
I'm the
voted for
best
myself as
driver.
first either.
I don't
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think I'm the best driver. Just because my name's right there.
yeah,
Um, so I voted for the top 5 drivers that I believe that are the top 5 drivers.
yeah,
The guys that I see week in and week out up there winning, leading, running real well. So So that's usually how I vote. I try to do it to the best of my ability, and so I like it on the aspect because we're in football season, right? It kind of
Yeah.
ties in with it. I think we should do it every week. So I'm loving the trend of it. I think we need to carry it over to Friday nights if you
Yep.
have time, or if you want to show me, we can bring
Yeah.
it over to Friday night series. But I want
Hmm.
to have this every single week moving forward. And if
Yeah.
there's
I
a
think it's
chance that
insane.
you can't get to it, let me know, and we'll kind of do double duty on that and whatnot. But I love
Yeah.
it because, like I said, it brings the aspect. I will say this: I think Kerry Tribute is one of the most underrated drivers in the Monday Night Series.
I
I
agree.
wouldn't count him out for the Championship Six. I'm a big fan of Kerry,
He's been there
but
before.
yeah, and he made it to the Final Four last season, so Championship Four. So I do want to say I think Kerry is one of the most underrated drivers.
I agree. And I will say the caveats: we only, if you are a charter driver, you make the criteria for to be able to be voted for. Um, so non-charter drivers do not show up on the polls um, or polling option. I will say before we get into the final lap, uh, moving on to next week, I think we should make uh, predictions as to who we think finds themselves on the outside looking in or in the championship six. Um, Obviously, Joey Doucette's locked in, but if
So we're
you
gonna
right
pick
now,
the Championship Six and what
yeah,
race winners?
yeah, we'll do race winners in the final lap, but I want championship six predictions first.
Okay, okay.
So Joey's
So you're
locked
gonna
in,
go first.
obviously.
You're gonna go first, or you
Sure,
want
I'll
me
go
to go
first.
first?
No, I can go first. So I'm gonna say Joey. I'm gonna say you, Brady. You're gonna be in. I'm gonna say Hunter Parsons gets in. So I'm taking kind of the three easy ones at the top of the board. Um, I'm going to say Tribute from the bottom going up, Morales, and Stiers. That's my six.
I like that. So I'm Joey's locked in, so he's number
Yep.
one. I believe I'm gonna make it with my points. I think Hunter
I think you're
Porson's gonna
safe.
make it with his points.
Yep.
But I also think Hunter is one of the best super speedway drivers in our series. So Joey, Brady, LaBeouf, Joey Doucette, Brady LaBeouf, Hunter Parsons. I believe Adam Newton gets in.
Okay.
I believe Joey Stiers gets in.
And
And I
who's your six?
believe Kerry Tribute comes up from behind and gets in.
So I know Tribute's below right now, right? I'm pretty sure. So who's Tribute knocking out for you then? Because
Nate
Morales is also
Maurer.
below the
Nate
cut. Okay,
Maurer.
so neither of us have Nate Maurer,
Correct.
the guy who has the most
I
top
take
tens,
I
the most
take
top
Newton
fives.
and you
Yeah,
take Morales, basically.
yeah. So the guy who has the most top tens, the most top fives, the best average finish for enough races, although only one win. Important to note. There are four drivers with multiple wins this season. None of them are named Nathan Maurer. Um, Interesting. That
I
will cause
just I
controversy, I think.
just I just see there's somebody sneaking their way in. Usually you and I hate to say this because we just talked about how underrated he is, but it's not unlikely. Um but it's also possible for Nate to have a bad race. I don't think 7 points is anywhere near safe. I think the pressure, the stress is going to take over, and I just see Nate maybe getting caught up in something or just doing a different strategy that maybe not play in his favor and gets knocked out.
Yeah, our producer says Doucette, you, Hunter Parsons, Jason Morales, Kerry Tribute, and Lance Miller. So
Oh, see, interesting.
that's a nice little surprise upset pick. Shout out to Lance Miller, kind of also another underrated driver. We don't really talk about a lot, but he's just super consistent. You
Real
know,
quiet too. Yeah, doesn't
very,
talk
very
much.
quiet.
Just lets us
Yeah,
race
no,
and do everything.
I agree. Huge shout out to Lance Miller here shortly. Um, we can move on to the final lap here, Brady. We'll put some time up on the clock. Really, we don't have much direction for where this one's going to go. So we can just talk about whatever, and we'll just see how it ends. I can't remember what the timer was. Was it 15 minutes, I think?
Yeah, 10 or 15, and it's kind of a freestyle. We're just going to kind of wing it.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, I like it this way too because it kind of brings up different topics as we kind of talk anyways and get off topic. So I mean, kind of falls right into what we want to do anyways.
Yeah, I will say we did have one other question that someone wanted us to get to, and Joey Doucette asked, "Who's the rookie of the year?" And this makes me ask to start our final lap, 15 minutes on the clock. One, what's our criteria for rookie of the year? And two, who would be your pick?
I would say it would be kind of, and I want to bring Rookie of the Year back. I want to bring it back. I think it was a good thing to have. The only reason why I kind of got rid of it is because we would have 15 new drivers, right? So it's kind of like, man, like it's more work. But I've also had people that were like, man, like some of those guys that may have not made the playoffs or run as well as others, like that's what they looked forward to of looking at was Rookie of the Year standings.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring it back on Mondays and Fridays when their new season start. The criteria would be, I would imagine, not racing at all in Nazareth.
Okay.
So guys like
I agree
Travis
with that.
Twitty come in, Jason Bridges, just to name a few that's coming in on Monday that's never raced with us.
Yep.
They're going to be rookies, and it's going to be kind of set up how the old points format is, where if we have 10 teams, it would be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So it's going to kind of be like that. If we have five, if you're the highest finishing rookie, you're going to get 5 points. Second, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of deal.
Yep.
So it's going to be kind of set up like that. If I had to pick a rookie in the series for Mondays, man, this is going
I
to
don't
be
even know who's
tough.
brand new. That's my problem.
Uh,
I would struggle with.
yeah, I mean, obviously, Hunter comes in there, but I wouldn't consider Hunter a rookie.
He's not a
Lan-
rookie. And that would
La-
be like considering me a rookie because I've never raced on the Monday series before. I don't think you can call Hunter.
oh, Joey
Yes, Stires.
Stires.
I think Stires has to be the easy pick then. Our producer
Yeah,
reminding us Joey Stires is
man,
brand new. I think
Lance Miller comes to mind too. Stires would be the obvious pick. Dark horse I would give to Lance Miller just because I
well,
think
they're both in the final 10 right now,
yeah,
the elite
yeah.
10 or whatever we're calling it.
So I would kind of those two names come to mind as I guess what I'm trying to say. Lance
They're
Miller
the
and
right
Joey
picks.
Stires.
Yeah, they're the right picks. I agree. Um, I think we should talk a little bit though about real world NASCAR for a second. Kyle Larson locks in with his win at Las Vegas. Almost lost the race there. Christopher Bell making a great late surge there. They head to Homestead, Miami this weekend. Dale Jr. is back behind the wheel of an Xfinity car after a fiery end to his Bristol race. Do you see any surprise winners this weekend? And who do you think ends up making the championship for?
Oh man, this is tough. So Xfinity, since we just talked about that, I I'm not gonna say a surprise favorite. I think Justin Allgaier wins that race.
Okay.
I think Junior runs well. I give him a top five, top six finish.
Yeah.
Um, well, go ahead.
No, I agree. I think Junior runs solid. He likes Homestead. He's run there before in his one offs. He did it a couple years ago, I think, during the COVID pandemic when they raced there early in the season. He ran there. I'm going to say John Hunter Nemechek though. He wins the race. He's just too good. I mean, just
Yeah.
absurdly fast. Huge shout out though. Riley Herbst getting his first ever national series win. Honestly, he's been around
Yes.
for so long. I thought he had already won a race for some reason.
Me
First
too.
ever national series win at home, at his home track in Las Vegas. So again, huge shout out to that 98 car for getting that win. Really impressive. Beat
Absolutely.
the crap out of the
Absolutely.
field.
And I haven't really looked at the Xfinity points.
I have no clue. I just know John
I
Hunter
think
Nemechek's an easy lock.
yeah. Um, and I'm trying to figure out everybody that's in there. I mean, I would say John Hunter Nemechek, Allgaier,
Yep.
Sam Mayer, and Cole
Yeah.
Custer make the final four. I think
Oh, so
those
Austin
are
Hill you have out. Huh.
yeah, yeah. I think Austin Hill's out, but like I said, I haven't really looked at the points
Yeah, I haven't
on
looked at the release.
Xfinity.
We'll go more into that maybe next week. We'll do a deep
Yeah,
dive with
yeah.
one race left.
On the Cup
Um,
side, I'm gonna say William Byron wins Homestead. He's a previous winner of a Homestead. He's
yeah.
pretty much dominated a lot on the mile and a half. Excuse me, mile and a halfs, and he's really, this kind of track fits into his driving style. So
Yeah.
I would say William Byron wins. The Hendrick guys lock themselves in, and Truex and Denny Hamlin make the final four.
Okay. I like the picks. I do think it's going to be two Toyotas versus two Chevys. I don't think a Ford makes the final four. I really wanted Chris Buescher to perform a little bit better at Vegas than he did. I really wanted Ryan. Well, Ryan Blaney ran pretty well, and then he got DQ'd, and then he got undQ'd. So that was a whole story. I think Reddick wins this weekend,
I
and I
like that
think
pick.
that locks him in. I think Byron wins Martinsville or Hamlin wins Martinsville. But either way, your last two drivers are going to be Byron and Hamlin. Um, Obviously, Larson could go out and spank the field this week, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he did it last year. He just
Correct.
dominated. So Larson obviously is a very safe pick to win the race this weekend. I think he is a top three driver easily. I just think the other two drivers that the track fits, like you said, are William Byron and Tyler Reddick. They both all three of them love to rip the fence. They really like searching for grip. They're all super talented drivers. And I think that they will all finish really, really well, barring any accidents or mechanical failures for either of those drivers. I think those three will be the drivers to beat.
And since we're on the subject, Tyler, we need to bring this up. Is I want to say what we said 8 weeks ago was our last show. Maybe
Yep,
we filled out brackets.
we
So
did.
maybe our next show
We
we
can
need to
talk
see
about
what.
how bad they were.
Yeah, maybe we can put a spreadsheet together and see what those names look like, and see who's gonna
Yeah,
beat who maybe in our little head-to-head battle. I guess get 1 point for drivers moving on or whatnot, or who our
yeah,
final four and champion is. See who that wins. So maybe we can get a sneak peek of that next week.
yeah. I think we definitely should do that. Well, I'll have to pull up. I'll have to go through some old text messages to figure it out between you and I. I do remember though. I guess the shocker driver to advance out of the first round of the NASCAR playoffs was Bubba Wallace, and you had him knocked out, but I'm pretty sure I had him advancing. So that was at least 1 point I
Yeah,
gained on you there.
I think
Um,
Kevin Harvick hurt me.
yeah, Harvick I think
I
hurt
thought he
both of
would
us.
perform a little bit better. It being his last
Disappointed.
season, kind of
Yeah,
storyline for NASCAR. That just goes to show you that it's not scripted, I guess.
Logano
But I thought,
too. Horrible,
yeah,
horrible. Knocked out in the
yeah,
first round was just horrible.
yeah,
Truex surviving just because he won the regular season the first two rounds because he was awful, and
yeah,
he really
yeah.
hasn't been great yet. I mean, he was kind of okay at Vegas, but that
And
team just they have issues.
that kind of comes to a point. I've seen this on NASCAR First Alert, I believe, on Facebook, and it was playoff points. And I want to bring this to your attention. I want your opinion on it.
Yeah.
Do we get rid of playoff points?
No.
And we just kind of go into the playoffs reset 0-0, everybody's in there and whatnot. I think it would make it interesting for one.
No. You can't do it. And here's why. Then no one would give a shit what they do in the regular season.
Yeah, yeah,
You wouldn't unless once you win and got in, then no one would try for wins anymore. They would just fuck around and try random shit, and you would see guys being less willing to take risks and get a win because there's no incentive at that point. I think you keep the playoff points if you're going to keep the system. What I would love, and is you have playoff points still, but you go to a 10 race chase. But you keep the playoff points, so there still is an incentive for winning or for dominating the regular season. But now that incentive, that gap can shrink a little bit quicker if you really get into it. So you could increase the bonus if you wanted to, but a 10 race, all 16 drivers or all 12 drivers, I think that should cut the field to 12 and do a 10 race chase, but with playoff points still involved.
yeah. I like how in the final round how we reset to zero. It kind of makes it more, even and just kind of, hey,
Well, just
anything can
whoever
happen.
finishes first. Oh, you
Correct.
mean our
So
round before our championship round?
yeah,
Never mind. I
our
know what
round
you're
of
saying.
10, how we reset to zero. I like that idea. I think that would make it interesting because then you don't have somebody like Truex where, hey, we're running 15th and we're still moving round the round. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it would make, hey, you get hot at a certain point in the playoffs. Truex is knocked out, regular season champion or not. But hey, that's a different, it's apples to oranges, right? Because they have to show up every week.
I,
So
I will say the one big difference though is Truex, winning the regular season, not a ton of playoff points. I don't think he won a race at all. Maybe he won
Yeah, I
one.
think he won 2.
Did he win two? Regardless, however you want to slice it, Truex still made it out of the first round, unlike Kevin Harvick, who won 9 races in one season and couldn't make it out of the first round. And actually, Harvick
Correct.
had more playoff points from winning 9 races than Truex did for his 2 and his regular season championship. So,
Absolutely.
it kind of puts in perspective how bad Harvick was that one year where he won 9
Yes.
races and got knocked out early.
In that particular round, yes.
He was horrible. And in my opinion, wasn't deserving of being a champion. I think you still have to perform when it matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's in the
Hands down.
chase, he would have stuck too.
Absolutely.
Oh, you still got 4.5 minutes, Brady. Any other topics we want to hit?
Well, man, it kind of goes into Monday nights, and
Okay.
we got Friday night tomorrow night, so
Yeah.
we could talk about race winners. Monday nights
Yep.
at Talladega. Who do you
Yeah.
have winning this Talladega? It's going to be a wild race. I know it is. I think it's going to be a great race.
Yeah.
It typically is a great race. I believe that it will be. But who do you have winning at Talladega Superspeedway?
I think there's going to be more carnage in this Talladega race than we've seen in the past because so many drivers need stage points, right? I mean, we could argue that really all 7 of you who aren't locked, or all 9 of you who aren't locked in, need stage points. In reality, I think the answer is probably about 6 to 7 of them need stage points. I don't think you and Hunter as much, but you still should try if you can, if you think you're not going to get wrecked. I think we see big cautions at the end of both stages because of that. I say we're going to have another trend continue, and that's one of the races of each round, a non-playoff driver winning it. So I'm going to pick. I know he's in the consolation bracket, but I really don't care. I'm going to pick Steve Barnett to win this race.
Interesting pick, and I know he's going to be happy about that. I mean,
He's
hey,
won
he
at
won
Talladega
Charlotte.
before.
Yeah, he's won
Yeah,
Talladega, the All-Star race, an All-Star winner. Man, this is. It all depends on who's going to show up. I hope everybody shows up. I hope we have 30 trucks.
yeah,
And that's me saying that, and I'm 20 points to the good. It would benefit me more if only 18 people showed up, right?
I agree.
But I hope we do have a good field. Man, I'm gonna go with the Highline driver, and I'm gonna say Jason Morales gets it done, and he
Wins and
wins.
in. Wow.
He wins
Wait,
and
you
ends.
didn't even pick him in your
I
championship
know,
6.
I know. That's what's crazy about it. That's how
You make.
crazy this. This is how crazy this race is. I
I
could
think
be
you're
wrong
hedging
on
your
my
bets.
I can be wrong on my top 6 drivers making a championship 6. That's how this big unknown happens, Tyler.
Yeah,
I could be wrong about my championship 6, but I could be right about the race winner, or vice versa. But
I think you're
Jason
hedging your bet.
Morales just comes to mind. He just comes to mind. Jason Morales.
All right. I do think a non-championship contending driver wins it though. Regards to Phoenix tomorrow night, I think Chris Cinnamon's back from a 2-week hiatus? Question mark.
I believe he is, yeah, because he's been
Doesn't.
talking a lot of smack in the Discord. So
Yeah.
I think he's back.
He's not even fallen outside of the top 20 in points. I don't know why he's talking as much trash. It's not like, and also he's missed 2 races. I think multiple drivers in these series in the past have missed
I
like
think
6
he's
and
missed
still made the
3.
playoffs.
I think he's missed
He's missed
3.
3. Okay. When he misses 6 and makes the playoffs, then he can talk to me. Just because I've done it. No, I think Keith Bradley wins. He loves Phoenix. He's super talented there. I think he gets another win, gives him win number 5 on the season. I think Cinnamon finishes well, but I think Keith Bradley wins the race.
Stephen Thomas comes to mind. I've seen Stephen
Ooh,
Thomas run
good pick.
very well there. I don't think he has a Phoenix win.
I
I
don't know.
think he gets it done tomorrow night. Whether or not he does, I think he's due. It seems like when I do the payouts on Friday nights, I know at Kentucky he ran well. I know at Richmond he ran well. So I just think that Stephen Thomas is due for a win for us to start talking about him, and I think he runs well at Phoenix because it kind of ties into the whole Richmond factor.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a short track.
yeah, so I think he does.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good pick. I don't know if he wins, but I think he's talented enough that he can get the job done. Unfortunately, up there you're back. You're back now. We lost you for a second. We were worried.
Yeah, but
Um,
yeah, Stephen Thomas.
Not a bad pick. We got 20 something seconds left here. I think I've just been called an idiot by Steve Barnett um, for the
That's
commentator's curse. Yep,
typical
he's
Steve,
already
right?
messaged me. Yeah, he's already
Typical
messaged
Steve.
me.
And maybe that's
Um,
why I did pick Jason, right? Because maybe he
you don't see
probably
him.
won't win. You know,
Watch, he'll make it in on
maybe
points
maybe
just to
maybe
spite
because I
me in
didn't
both
pick him in
ways.
my final six. By picking him, he's not going to win the race. So maybe my final six is correct and better than your picks.
Or what he'll do is he won't win the race, but he will make it in on points, and then you look
It's a
stupid both ways.
possibility. I will say this: if you're watching this podcast, thank you if you are, and
Yep.
you follow follow our series. Please watch it. It's going to be a great race.
Oh, highly recommend. And again, huge shout out to all of our sponsors. You see them rolling through the top of the screen. A few we didn't mention earlier, NRE Power Systems as well. Hopping on board. Starbase Comics, another absolutely great sponsor. Out, I believe in Nashville, right, Brady? Starbase Comics.
Absolutely, Nashville. Yep.
Yep. Warrior Wraps, Millie's Restaurant and Catering down Daytona Beach, Florida, and a bunch of other amazing sponsors as they've rolled through on the top. Brady, any other quick shout outs or final thoughts?
Yeah. Shout out to all our sponsors. Really, everybody that helps us. We try to give them as much advertisement as we can. We appreciate all of them. It's not just one; it's all of them. They all contribute in their own little ways, and we appreciate it much. All the guys that help out. Can't thank them enough. We're getting down to the season 2 conclusion of it, and I just want to give a shout out to you, Tyler, coming on and doing this podcast with me. Cody Knott, my vice president, Nazara, does so much stuff behind the scenes that people do not even know. And there's so many other guys, my executives, my board of directors, my appeals panels. Appeals panel's been busy lately with all these EOLs and appealing. So I thank you to everybody that contributes. And the big story that I haven't broke out yet, but I'm going to say it tonight on the show, is the SimRacerHub.com series will be changing series sponsors. Sim
Wow.
Racer Hub will be on there, and a different factor. We will give them advertisement, but we will have a new series sponsor for Monday nights next season, and that will be the DSR Electric Truck Series. We
Wow.
appreciate Dan Galbel coming in there and helping us up. So we're going to give him the series, the title sponsor of that series. So shout out to DSR Electric.
Yep. Big shout out to DSR Electric, also Hoop Ties Garage. You see, again, trying to get through all of our sponsors that make this happen. Again, huge shout out to you, Brady. I'm glad we were able to get back on the show. Thank you, Cody Knott, for producing it. It's always fun. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this more often. I'd like it. I enjoy
Absolutely.
it.
I enjoy it.
It's a great time. And you get to hear some of the thoughts of the important person and then just me, some random guy who runs
You're
around and
not
wins
just some
races.
random guy. Come on now. You're a big part of what I do on a daily basis, so don't ever forget
Oh,
that.
that really warms the soul. Again, though, thank you all for watching. Glad to be back, and we'll see you guys hopefully next week after a crazy Talladega race, and maybe we'll be talking to some Championship 6 drivers in the Monday Night Series. Thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.